The Florida insurance crisis is over. Okay, that's not a very good song, I'm sorry, but it might be getting better. Story time. Let's talk about what happened with us personally and our insurance in Florida in the past and where we're at now. So, Florida's insurance crisis has been a thing that has been talked about quite a bit in the media. You don't hear as much about it right now, but I've got some interesting updates for you. So let's backtrack. Right around the time that COVID hit and, the pandemonium and the boom with the low interest rates and everyone moving to Florida happened, we obviously saw property values go up crazy high. So that brought up, insurance rates a little bit, taxes, all that kind of stuff, because you're insuring a more expensive home. Also, though, storms. Hurricane Ian was a big one. That was a huge one. And right around that time, we were dealing with a lot of insurance companies in the state going through litigation and all these different lawsuits and yada, yada, yada. And basically what all that ended up making happen between the storms and all the legal mumbo jumbo that I won't bore you with is that a lot of insurance companies left the state. You had insurance companies saying, if your roof is 15 years or older, we won't cover you, or they would get around not covering you by just really, really, really raising your rates, and a whole bunch more. And so with insurance companies leaving the state, we started getting to the point where a lot of people were basically the only option they had was Citizens Insurance, which was like a government-backed insurance company. Long story short, rates went high because there wasn't a lot of options. There wasn't a lot of, we got a gopher tortoise up here. There wasn't a lot of, he's running away though. I might be able to get him on camera for you. Yeah, he's trying to get it. See, tortoises get a bad rap. They're not that slow. Okay. So insurance rates went up really high because there wasn't a lot of competition with, different companies leaving the state, and it was getting expensive because of all the litigation and the lawsuits for the companies to be here, yada, 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 yada. So here's what happened for us. During Hurricane Ian, or right after I should say, we had some damage to our home. And so we had a claim in, and basically they were going to pay out, they made good on what they're supposed to do and had to pay out for a roof. Our roof was already pretty old and honestly was going to need to be replaced anyways. And we had a few other little, I'd say overall minor damage type things going on. I don't think this trail goes anywhere. And there's some cool vines here though. But basically they had paid out a certain amount, and then we had to show proof that the work was done, and then they would give us the rest. Again, I won't bore you with all the details, but what ended up happening in the middle of all that, of all the claims getting paid out to us, our insurance company literally went out of business, or went out of the state, I should say, went out of business in Florida. And so our policy got bought out by another company. And so they just, basically kept everything as is for the rest of the remaining of that contract year for the contract that we were under. And, rates didn't change or anything like that because we already had it, all settled up with our mortgage and all that for the monthly payments. So that stayed the same. But when we hit the end of the year of that contract, the new company that had bought out our policy took our rate and tripled it. So we went from about $1,500 to about they were going to make it like $4,500. Now, here's a good lesson. This is one great way you can lower your insurance rate, especially now with things getting better. We'll get into why and how in a second. But that's to shop around for different companies, and just doing that you can get a much better rate. So we went from potentially having to pay $4,500 a year to just $2,600 something. I don't remember the exact number. And so that's what we did. We shopped around, we found a new company that was the new rate, $2,600-ish, and that was the rate last year and the year before. And again, we had a lot of storms go through Florida last summer. So I'm sure you saw the news on that. Some hit the East Coast, a lot more hit West Coast between storms, hurricanes, whole 9 yards, right? And everyone's talking about the insurance crisis and all these storms, and everyone's going to be leaving the state. But there were some laws put into place that helped eliminate a lot of these litigation issues and all the legal suing and mumbo jumbo going back and forth. And companies started coming back to the state. Okay. And I had some people, we made a previous video about this, leave comments like, I used to work in insurance and it never goes down. And those companies that left the state will never come back, and some have. And here's the thing. This year, our insurance renewal came in the mail, and I'm opening the envelope, kind of a little nervous. What's going to happen, because of all this news from people saying, oh, they never go down. And guess what? $300 less this year. Not bad, right? I'll take it. So around $2,300 for the year. Now, to put some things into context, I'll tell you kind of more about where our home is located, the age of it and stuff like that, so you can get a better sense for, those details are going to affect your rates, right? And some of the things that are going to matter. We'll talk more about all that stuff in a second. But I think the first important thing to understand is, one, more companies have come into the state. So now when you shop around, there's more to pick from, and that brings competition, and that could bring your rates down. In fact, we haven't even shopped around this year. A lot of people, if their rates go up, they're just, oh man, see, the insurance is so bad here and yada, yada. But take a second, shop some rates. And I think for a lot of you that maybe think, because this is the crazy thing, a lot of people think, and I've said this in a lot of videos, but I got to keep hammering home because we always have clients coming down to move to here. By the way, if you are looking to buy or sell a home anywhere from Sarasota down to Port Charlotte, Englewood, I should have mentioned this earlier, or the entire Orlando metro, get a hold of our team, 941-221-1897. We can help you avoid mistakes with buying a home, insurance, and the whole 9 yards, get you answers to those things that are just impossible to find online, and save you a lot of money with, the actual home purchase. And yeah, we would love to help you too, though, if you're looking to move to any of those areas. Anywhere else in Florida or the United States for that matter, you can click the link in the description, answer a few questions, and that'll get you connected with a realtor in the area that you're looking for, and that would be an expert in that local area. We really know these areas really well that we do serve, the Orlando metro as well as Sarasota on to Port Charlotte and Englewood. Back to what a lot of clients say is that they hear in these videos and comments and things like that, that everyone in Florida is paying $7,000 a year for insurance. And I've even seen like these online websites that'll show you like the average in a state for, what the insurance is for a year. And some of them will have Florida as like $7,000. I'm like, I want to say there's no way, but there is a way. But here's the thing. You got to take these things into context too, like all the different possible areas that are being included in this. You know what I mean? The Miami metro and whatever. Like I couldn't tell you what the case is in Miami. I really couldn't. But we live, so to give you some context now about like where we live and kind of what we're dealing with in our situation, because a lot of people that are looking to move to like the Orlando metro or the areas that we serve is going to be more similar to this, I think, as far as rates goes. And Orlando probably actually a little less than our specific situation. But our home is about a 2000s, early 2000s home. It is about 2 miles from the coast, from the Gulf, okay? So we're not far from the ocean, and obviously that, increases hurricane risk and things like that. We do not have hurricane shutters or hurricane impact windows, which can bring your rates down. And trying to think anything else that's important. We are not in a flood zone, but that's kind of a separate issue because flood insurance is a separate insurance that you can choose to get even if you don't need to, which we did decide to do. But if you don't need it, it's usually cheap to get it, just to get that extra peace of mind. So those are some, factors to consider. So like the age of our home helps. Anything from like 2000 and newer will help. Impact windows, as I just told you, would help. Newer roof. So here's the other thing that's kind of changed. It used to basically be that you had to have a roof that was 15 years or newer. A lot of companies just would drop you or find a way to basically get you to say, this is too much and I don't want to use you for insurance anymore. But what we've been hearing now is companies will actually cover you now if your roof is 15 years old or older, and it will cost you more, but it's not quite as astronomical as it used to be. That being said, just as a piece of advice, I guess, I would probably lean towards getting that roof replaced, even if insurance isn't making you, if it's 15 years old or older. We're talking shingle roofs. Tile roofs will last longer. Metal roofs will last longer, but a lot of people do have the shingle roofs in Florida, right? Because it's just cheaper to put on. And yeah, so a lot of people kind of elect to go that route. But if it's 15 years old or older, you are setting yourself up to maybe have some potential damage. We've seen this happen for people. We've seen it with, abandoned foreclosure homes and things like that, maybe got hit by a storm where the roof, so basically all the sunshine and the rain and the constant beating of that sun makes the shingles brittle, and the constant heat and humidity, all that kind of stuff, a lot quicker than it would in a lot of other states. So what you end up having is brittle shingles that now go flying, right? Crack, whatever the case may be, and now you get water coming in through the roof. And that can, as you can imagine, lead to a lot of other issues water damage in the house, water damage in the ceiling, of course, and then, you know, anywhere else, potentially mold. It's just a whole can of worms you probably don't want to deal with, to be honest. But that being said, it's nice to know that we're starting to see some of that competition come back to the state. We're starting to see some rates go down. We're starting to see more people being able to get coverage, you know, with older roofs and things like that. So things are getting better. Now, I would say this, when people said we were in a crisis, I think we were teetering on a crisis. You know, it was more of a worry, like, yeah, if anything gets any worse, we're definitely in a crisis. Some people might have said at that point we already were. Whatever, whichever way you want to look at it is fine. But the point is, things are getting better. Now, does that mean we're no longer in a crisis? I don't know. I mean, you tell me. You know, we've talked to some clients from out of state, and they said, oh, wow, I live in Connecticut or Massachusetts or whatever, and their rates are like, oh, it's, you know, within $500, give or take, you know what I mean? And again, there's a lot of factors that are going to go into their rates that are going to, you know, make a difference in that as well. So that being said, it's not as crazy though as what you may be hearing online. Like there's a lot of these guys on YouTube, guys and a few gals, that do these channels where they basically try to make everything always look terrible. The market's gonna crash. There's an insurance crisis in Florida. They'll talk about California maybe. You know, they'll talk about anywhere where they can find some bad news to talk about, and they'll tell you how terrible it is. And how can anyone afford to live? I'm not saying things are or aren't affordable here, because everyone has a different perspective on what's considered affordable. Depends on what you do for a living, you know, where you're coming from and what the cost of living is there. Those are all factors that are gonna go into that, right? But at the end of the day, things are getting better here. And I guarantee you, you will not hear that from any of those other channels. And I'm not here to tell you things are amazing and perfect either. I just want to make sure that if you are looking to move to Florida, especially the areas that we do serve, like you have a very clear understanding of what's happening, how things actually are, and the way things are going and the way things are developing. I don't want you to think it's any better or any worse than what it is, because then when you come here and you find out some of the costs, or you see things that maybe we're talking about in these videos, then you're like, what the heck? You know, and then we're trying to help you, and you don't even want to be here, or, you know, you can't afford to live here, or whatever the case may be. Now it's a waste of both of our time, you know what I mean? So our agenda is basically be as transparent as possible. And that's the way we'll always keep things on this channel. You know, we're going to talk, I mean, the things that we love, we're going to talk about those too. You know, like we love the beach, we love the weather here. We're going to talk about those things, but insurance is getting better. So if you are looking to buy or sell a home anywhere from Sarasota down to Port Charlotte, Inglewood, or the entire Orlando metro, you can get a hold of our team, 941-221-1897. We've helped a lot of people avoid mistakes, get answers with questions that you just can't find online, and save a lot of money. And if you're looking to buy or sell a home anywhere else in Florida, or the entire United States for that matter, you can click the link in the description, answer a few questions, and that'll get you connected with a realtor that's an expert in the area that you're looking for, and that doesn't cost you anything extra. But either clicking that link or getting a hold of us is a good way to support the channel, so we can keep making you videos like this one. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button. If you want to know more about moving to Florida, check out this playlist right here and live breezy.